Yes, good day. You are welcome to another edition of our online class. And today I want to talk quickly on site inspection. When I say site inspection, for now we are dealing on the series of electric fencing. That's what we're talking about for the now. So that's a site inspection. For electric fence. What are the things you need to look out for whenever you're carrying out your inspection on any site? Number one, the first thing you need to take consideration of is the perimeter. One, perimeter. Perimeter, you need to know the size of the perimeter because this very factor will determine the number of brackets you'll be needing, the number of the amount of wires you need, the spring, and every other things that will be needed for that very job. Another thing you need to consider is topography. When I say topography, what do I mean? There are most times, especially in areas like rocky place, when you go to places like Abeokuta, even Abuja, you notice that those terrains there, you mostly have slopy areas. And when you have slopy areas like that, there's this tendency that your fence, they are always in steps. Kind of, you have steppings. You don't have this kind of regular fence where you have maybe, for example, you can have a straight fence like this in some other areas. But when you have areas where you have steppings, when I talk about topography, I mean the steppings on fence, steps, the steppings, or you can say steps. Okay, now you can have areas like this where you have maybe your fence, it gets to a place, you see it drops down and it continues like again. It gets somewhere again, it drops down just like that. If you have stuff like this, areas where you have steppings, you need to understand that this area determines how many posts, because at the end of the day, if you have this, in scenario where if you have a place where you have a straight fence, maybe this is a straight fence, you see they are the same distance, okay? And this place, the straight one you're using, maybe for example, this is let's say this is 20 meter. If I divide 20 by 3 meter, 6 point something or 7 points. So maybe this you're using maybe max, like this area using like eight brackets for the straight one. But when it gets to this, instead of using 8 brackets, you need extra bracket. We're using 8 here. Here might consume about 2, 3. You might use additional 3 brackets. We're using 8 here, the same length perimeter, but here you would need a minimum of another 3 extra because of the step, because it is understood by the time you're doing your fixing, pegging your post, you must have one here and also have another one here, one another here and here and here. So you must consider your steppings. And also immediately you're having this area will also determine the number of spring, because wherever you're having a step, it is essential you understand that there's high tendency you'll be consuming more springs and more hooks. So please take note of all this when you're doing taking your measurement. And also, what other things you need to also consider, number 3, is the type of energizer. The type of energizer. I want you to understand that for your energizers, we have different outputs. That is the power of each energizer. It varies. Unlike you have your Druid 13, you have the Druid 15. Most of these energizers, and you have the Wizard 4. You have the Wizard 4, which is those are 4 joule. You have the I think the Droid 15 is a 5 joule energizer. So the higher the joule, the more area is able to cover. And most times, I think I will need to I might also drop a chart of for your energizer. If you're using a Nemtech energizer, I'll drop a chart in this video for you to see if you're doing number of lines, the number of lines you're using for a particular job. It also determines the size of energizer. Now, take for example, if you're using a 6 lines, and you have another 8 lines, there can be situation where with the same perimeter, a particular energizer can power these 6 lines for same perimeter, the same let's say we have, it's an assumption, we have like 800 meters fence, and we're using maybe a Wizard 4 energizer. If there's high tendency that a Wizard 4 energizer can power 800 meters of a 6 line, but might not be able to power 800 meters of the 8 lines. Why? Because you have a longer stretch of wires when you're dealing with the 8 lines. So these are things you also need to consider. Then number 4 thing you need to consider is the type of poles, or do I say bracket, type of brackets. The types of brackets. Now, depending on the kind of brackets you're using, there are brackets that are designed for coastal areas. If you just use the normal iron, maybe a metal that are not well treated in areas that are coastal areas, there's high tendency you begin to experience rust here in coastal areas. So the type of bracket you use must be put into consideration. If it's a coastal area, if it's just maybe the normal area where you don't have, because the coastal area, there's high tendency you have the salt, the water from the sea. The water from sea are most times salty, and it can also affect your bracket. So if you're using just your normal pool, not well treated, you can begin to have corrosion on your brackets. And also, instead of using those kind of brackets, you can decide to use the fiberglass, the modular kind of bracket, which works perfectly for this area. Then you can also consider the number of lines of your poles or your bracket. The number of lines matters a lot still. You must consider this, because every of all these factors, they work hand in hand to determine what the kind of installation and what you'll be needing in those areas. And also, you also have, where you have areas like, if you're doing a freestanding, it will also determine the kind of line you'll be using for a freestanding. So all of this needs to be considered when doing inspection for any job. So it is expedient and important for you to understand that all these factors must be considered when doing when carrying out a site inspection for electric fencing. Before this video ends, at the end of this video, I'll be happy to drop you a chart showing you the size, the particular distance each energizer can cover. Sometimes some people ask me, please, sir, can a Wizard energizer power a 300 meter wires of maybe aluminum wire? Can it power 300 meters? Can it power 400 meters? And we use a 6 lines and 8 lines. These are things you can use in the chart I'll be dropping is something you can use to factor what will actually work for you. I'll call it a day in our class. Till we meet again in our next class. Please subscribe to this channel. You can recommend it to others. Share also with friends. And we'll meet in our next class. Do have a nice day. Thanks for watching. Bye.